Hill, Hobson, Horn, Jackson of the 15th, Jackson of the 11th, Jackson of the 32nd, Johnson, Jordan, Kirby, McCon, McDaniel, McLendon, McMahon, Michelle, Moran, Norwood, Parker, Parks, Pope, Seymour, Simmons of the 12th, Simmons of the 13th, Sojourner, Sparks, Suber, Tate, Thomas, Thompson, Turner, Floyd, Whaley, Wiggins, Witherspoon, Younger. Mr. President, a quorum is present.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Will senators please rise for the invocation given by Senator Doty, which will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance delivered by Senator Simmons. Senator Doty.
Will you pray with me, please? Heavenly Father, we come before you today and thank you for the many blessings that you provide for us each day. I thank you for each person in this chamber and lift each one of them up to you and ask that you provide a special blessing to each one. I pray that you'll lead and guide us as we make important and difficult decisions for the state of Mississippi. I ask for your forgiveness for the many times we fail you. We know that your greatest commandment to us is to love you, our Lord and our God, with all our heart, all our soul, all our minds, and to love our neighbors as ourselves. Lord Jesus, as we go through this day and this session, show us your ways. When we don't know which way to turn, teach us your paths. Help us to be attentive to your voice and seek your will. For your word is a lamp for our feet and a light for our paths. Shine that light into the confusion of our world and bring clarity to all of us in this chamber as we go about our duties. We praise your holy name and ask all of these things through your Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Senators. Now the reading of the journal. Senator Polk, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate dispense with the reading of the journal.
Senator moves to dispense with the reading of the journal. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Messages and petitions, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, there are none.
Committee reports. Senator Polk, you're recognized.
Mr. President, I move the Senate dispense with the reading of committee reports.
Senator moves to dispense with the reading of the committee reports. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Readings of the titles, bills, and resolutions. Recognize Senator Polk.
Mr. President, I move the Senate dispense with the reading of the titles of the bills and resolutions.
Senator moves to dispense with the reading of the title, bills, and resolutions. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. Does any chairman want to take up an item on the calendar? Chairman, to take an item up on the calendar. Are you up? Senator Blackman, you're recognized for what purpose?
Introduction of a resolution out of order.
Please proceed. Where's Briggs? Let's let her read the title. Mr. Clerk, read the title, please.
Suspend rules for drafting, etc., transfer certain CARES Act monies to MDA for a local government grant program.
Thank you. Briggs, you go first. Senator Hobson, you are recognized for what purpose?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to go to item 1 on today's calendar and call it up and have the title read.
Mr. Clerk, please read the title.
Senate Bill number 3011, Appropriation Department of Health for COVID-19 expenses incurred by hospitals for fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21.
Make the usual motion.
Chair makes the usual motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Mr. Chairman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. 4 bills that we're going to go over here in order, and this is the first, and this is what I would call a placeholder bill for the CARES Act appropriation as it relates to any expenses incurred for hospitals and by hospitals for the COVID disease. You'll note that we just put a $1 in this bill as we did in the other 3 that will follow, and also we have a reverse repeater in each of these bills. These, again, are just a placeholder bill, so when we establish an amount that will go to our public and private hospitals, we will have the vehicle alive to do so. I'm happy to yield for questions. If not, I move adoption by use of the morning roll call.
Any questions? Any questions? Senator Jordan, you're recognized for what purpose?
I have a question, Mr. President.
You yield for a question, sir.
I yield.
You're recognized,
Thank
Senator Jordan.
you, Mr. President. Mr. Chairman,
Thank
My hospital in Greenwood said that they were excluded because they had more than 500 employees. Is that true under this?
Well, that would be a PPP issue probably that you're referencing. And this is just the state vehicle for the CARES Act funds that we have, the 1.25 billion less what we've already allocated to the businesses and that we've left in DFA for immediate use by the governor's office if necessary. But that the remaining funds, this will help address for any of our public and private hospitals any expenses they have that meet the Treasury regulations for the use of those funds.
So what I need to tell them that this is not true by them having over 500 employees doesn't mean that they are not eligible for some of the 1.52 billion dollars COVID-19 services.
As
They
of-
are eligible. What I want to be able to tell them if it's true.
As of right now, Senator Jordan, we have not set any parameters for how the hospitals will use it, but I think what you're referencing is the PPP language.
I don't know what those, what that mean in terms of what can I tell them to give them some assurance that they will, our hospital in pretty bad shape, that they will receive some resources from the 1.25 billion at some point. I need something to tell them.
Sure. I can't, this is, first of all, this is a placeholder bill, and this bill will likely have to go to conference like the other CARES Act funds for business expenses went to conference. And so the parameters that we set, and that'll be decided by all of us, the parameters that are set for the hospital's reimbursement would be in that bill. This is just a placeholder
yes,
right now.
sir.
But I have, truthfully, I have not heard one person say anything about setting a size limitation for hospitals in Mississippi.
So if they heard that
that's the first thing I've heard, and I think
Well-
what they're referencing is the PPP federal program has nothing to do with what we're talking about here today. So I think, my anticipation is that what the measure that comes out of the Senate and the House and what's passed and goes to the governor will probably not have any kind of size limitations. Because I know we have some large hospitals in the state, and I think the intent, at least my hope, is that all hospitals have the opportunity to have access to these funds for PPP-related expenses. PPE-related expenses and other COVID expenses.
Yes, sir. I don't mean to be, my final question, I don't mean to keep being redundant, but what can I tell them in terms of getting some assistance from this 1.25 billion?
Yeah, our hope, and that's the reason this bill is before you, is to be able to establish a dollar figure. And I know the Lieutenant Governor's staff has been working hard to get all the information from the Hospital Association. I've seen a list from the Hospital Association. It's several $1 million that they have put forth that they think are related to COVID expenses. And I don't remember the number, Senator Jordan, but it's several $1 million that goes to just about every hospital in the state. And in fact, I'm pretty sure that's the largest to the smallest is on that list. So,
But the 500 employees doesn't have anything to do with it.
no, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Jordan.
Senator Blackman, for what purpose you seek recognition?
Questions, Mr. President?
Will you yield for a question, Senator?
I yield, Mr.
Please
President.
proceed.
Thank you. How much money is in the CARES fund now?
How much is left at this point?
Yes.
Well, we allocated $300 million for the small businesses, and we've got $50 million sitting at DFA right now for the governor's use should something arise promptly. So the remainder of it, I guess that's $900 million.
900 million. And let me get my question correct. Okay, we have $900 million left. Is there are we going to look at any program for personal protective equipment for our state employees, for our county employees, for our municipal employees?
We've got a measure that will follow this for cities and counties. That's the next one, Senate Bill 3012. that again is a placeholder bill that will be utilized for the cities and counties' PPE-related expenses, other COVID-related expenses. Anything that qualifies under the Treasury regs will be subject to being reimbursed through Senate Bill 3012 or the companion bill that comes from the House.
Okay, and are we operating, I guess, right now on the Treasury regulation that they updated May 28th that said that 45% of the monies that the state receives should go to local governments?
Senator, the Treasury regs, or at least the interpretation and opinions as it relates to those Treasury regs, seem to be changing by the hour. So I'm always keeping an eye on it, and staff is keeping an eye on what they're doing. I've seen it, everything from shall to should to may, on whether or not it'll go to cities and counties. But I anticipate and hope that we're going to be sending some amount of money. I don't know how much it will be. Again, I think the staff has been looking at the expenses the cities and counties have put together thus far. I don't know what that number is, but and that number will continue to climb undoubtedly as they continue to have expenses related to this disease. So we're going to hopefully put enough money into that that pot or that vehicle that can be administered and given to cities and counties as they have those needs and expenses that are reimbursable pursuant to the Treasury regs.
Okay, so you say the staff have been working with the cities and counties. Who are they working through? Because this just came May 28th, and up until that time, no cities and counties thought they were going to be eligible to receive CARES Act money.
Well, I don't think that's right, because my city and county think that they're eligible to receive CARES Act funding based on the regs and the funds that were sent to the state. So I think that they think they're going to get those. Now, the question has come up that some cities and counties, and for that matter, hospitals and businesses and everybody else, think it's a revenue issue. Now, right now, to my knowledge, there is no aspect of the CARES Act that would allow a revenue reimbursement, but it would allow a COVID-19 related expenses reimbursement.
Okay, the May 4th regulations did not address cities and counties, did it?
I don't know the dates. Now, was that the original date?
That's correct.
The original date, my recollection, again, it's changed. Like, my recollection is it said that here's the money for the states, and out of that money, up to 45% can go to cities and counties for COVID-related expenses.
The May 4th regulation didn't have that in there.
I don't know the date, Senator, and again, these things are changing. Interpretations and opinions on the Treasury regs and are changing through the Treasury Department. I see different stuff, all the time. In fact, I think in the last 48 hours, I've seen 2 or 3 different opinions on what should go to cities and counties.
Well, would they not, you saying opinions, who are these opinions coming from?
From people in the Treasury trying to interpret the law that was passed by Congress.
Well, have they updated their regulations within the last 48 hours?
They have, and I could probably get a staff member to give me the most recent language, but I don't have it in front of me right now.
Did you say they have?
They have.
They
have.
So you can go on the Treasury website and we can see an updated regulation for May 28th?
Senator, I don't know if it's on the website or if this are in the FAQ section.
Yeah, that's
they probably have tens of thousands of people. And you think about all the states that are asking the questions, can we do this, can we do that? So you have a lot of people asking questions about what they can do, and I think they're trying to give answers as to what, and I think even the issue about what they can do for cities and counties has changed in the last 48 hours, from one place saying that you know, it may need to be a certain percentage or number to now maybe coming back to where it could be or should be a certain number. Maybe should is the right answer, or may be a number. But, you know, I'm trying to be flexible like we all have to be in this, because who knows, in 48 hours I may get another opinion. I think at some point when we pull the trigger on the final passage of this bill, that we would have something pretty solid from Treasury as to how those funds would be utilized. And of course, we're going to make sure that the cities and counties obligate themselves to ensure that their requests are made to meet the guidelines as set by Treasury at that time. And if it changes, then of course that would be an argument we'd have to take up at some later point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Blackman.
Senator Blackman, any other questions? Any other questions?
If not, I move adoption by use of the morning roll call.
Senators move adoption by use of the morning roll call for final passage. Anyone who objects to the procedure? Anyone wish to be recorded as voting no? Seeing none, please recall all in present. Hold on one moment. I did not see a no vote. I'm sorry. We have a present. I'm sorry, Senator Turner. Present. Anyone else? All others. Please record all present on the morning roll call as voting aye, and the bill has passed. Senator, you're recognized.
Thank you. I go to item 2 on today's calendar and have the title read, please.
Mr. Clerk, please read the title.
Senate Bill number 3012, Appropriation Department of Finance and Administration, COVID-19 expenses incurred by municipalities and counties for fiscal year 20 and 21.
I'll make the usual motion.
Chairman makes the usual motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the bill that has the cities and counties language in it. And again, same $1 is in here, and there is a reverse repealer, and that we will use this as a placeholder as we put in the final number for cities and counties. Yield for questions. If there are none, I move adoption by use of the morning roll call.
Any questions? Senator Jordan, for what purpose you seek recognition?
I have a question, Mr. President.
Senator, you for a question?
I do.
Chairman.
Please proceed, Senator Jordan.
Okay. Now, this money that you're talking about for cities and counties, Mr. Chairman, this COVID-19, this amount make them whole for what they have lost as a result of short taxes or whatever the situation would be. This put them pretty well back where they were, or the amount of money that they have lost, a certain percentage of that.
Well, as I understand the regulations, this will pay for all items that were expenses, unexpected expenses that they incurred as a result of the COVID-19. So it's not a revenue replacement, but it is an opportunity to get money for things that you spend. If you had to have police officers on overtime for certain things, if you had to have sanitizer you bought, or mask, or gloves, if you had to spend money on a program that made people more safe, those kind of expenses would be reimbursable under this.
Yes, sir. But this doesn't have anything to do with your shortfall in sale taxes for us municipalities get 18.5% back from the state. This doesn't have anything to do with that, does it?
No, sir.
Okay. So I've heard some grumbling about the small amount that they're receiving, but they are thinking that because the economy slowed up, that this would have something to do with this. But this bill doesn't do that. It just make them whole by extra expenses that they have used during this time.
That's correct. Yes,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator Jordan.
Thank you, Senator Jordan. Any other questions? Any other questions? Senator Filligane, what purpose you seek recognition?
For a question, Mr. President.
We yield for a question,
I
Senator.
do. Yield.
You're recognized, Senator Filligane.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just curious. I know these are placeholder bills. What are the deadlines for when the placeholder part will go away and the actual numbers will be before us?
Senator, I think this would fall under the same deadlines for the general bills. I don't think there's no separate CARES Act deadline for these bills that I know of, so I think this will fall under the same deadlines.
And what is that one? I know they've been changing around a bit.
conference, I'm told conference deadlines for appropriations bills will be the deadline.
The conference for,
So it'll be same when appropriations and finance bills have to be taken up. We would have the same deadline, which is what, 5 days prior to signing die, unless the rules are suspended. Deadline on the existing calendar is July 4.
okay, the existing calendar, which we approved when, trying to remember.
Gosh, let me check with staff on this. Under HCR 65, that was when we changed the rules to allow the lieutenant governor and the speaker to adopt the new deadlines.
Okay, so the new deadline for the passage of this and the other finance bills would be July the 4th.
Independence Day.
Okay, thank you.
That's on conference reports. Yes, thank you, Senator Fillingham. Yes, sir.
Other questions? Senator Norwood, for what purpose you seek recognition?
Question, Mr. President.
Are you for a question, Senator?
I yield.
Senator Norwood, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On line 12, is that just referencing the fiscal year, or is that denoting the time that they have to expend the money? Because I thought we had to expend the money by the December 31st.
That's the language for our current fiscal year for DFA to spend the money. But you're correct on we've got to have the CARES Act funds as it exists right now. We've got to have those spent by December 30 or December 31. I think it's December 30 if I remember correctly, not the 31st of this year.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Norwood. Senator Blackman, for what purpose you seek recognition?
A question?
Are you for a question, Senator?
I yield.
Please proceed, Senator Blackman.
Okay, the title says it's for municipalities and counties. I don't see in the body where counties are included. I see on line 16 it says reimbursing municipalities for costs.
Line 30.
I see at line, somewhere it says, on line 39, it says provided by each municipality or county, but I don't see up any up here where it's giving it to the counties.
Line 30.
Line 30?
Yeah, 30.
I missed that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Blackman.
Thank goodness for staff to point it out to me which line it's on, so I don't have to read the whole bill.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Seeing
Thank
none,
you.
Senator,
If not,
you're
I move
recognized.
adoption by use of the morning roll call.
Senator, request for morning roll call, final passes. Anyone objects to the procedure? Anyone wish to be recorded as voting no or present? One present, Senator. Anyone else? Please record all those present in the morning roll call as voting aye, and the bill has passed. Senator, you're recognized.
Thank you. I move to item 3 on today's calendar and have the title read, please.
Mr. Clerk, please read the title.
Senate Bill Number 3013, Appropriation Department of Education for COVID-19 expenses for fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21.
Make the usual motion.
Chairman makes the usual motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the vehicle that we have as a placeholder for all the educational expenses. This includes K through 12 and our community colleges and IHL to allow any expenses that they incurred or any monies that we could send to them pursuant to the regs under the CARES Act. This would be the vehicle that we would use. It's got the same language, the $1 and the reverse repealer in it. If there are questions, I'll be happy to yield at this time.
Questions? Any questions for the senator? Seeing none, please
Move
make the
adoption
motion.
by use of the morning roll call.
Senators request use of the morning roll call for final passage. Anyone objects to the procedure? Anyone wish to be recorded as voting no? One present, Senator Turner. Seeing no others, please record all those present. Morning roll call voting aye, and the bill has passed. Senator, you're recognized.
Thank you. I ask that we move to item 4 on today's calendar and have the title read.
Mr. Clerk, please read the title.
Senate Bill number 3014, Appropriation Department of Finance and Administration for COVID-19 expenses for fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21.
I make the usual motion.
Senator makes the usual motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a kind of catch-all bill that we put in place for other entities or groups, agencies that we think are subject to receiving CARES Act funds or that could receive them. This is the vehicle that we could utilize to ensure that we had something alive to put in for their use. Same information, $1 put in as a placeholder amount, and reverse repealer is in this bill as well.
Any questions?
If no questions, I move adoption by use of the morning roll call.
Any questions from the Senate? Seeing none, senators request the use of the morning roll call for final passage. Anyone objects to the procedure? Anyone wish to be recorded as voting no? One present, Mr. Clerk. Okay, please record all those present in the morning roll call as voting aye. The bill has passed. Next, we recognize Senator Harkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to go to item 5, Senate Bill 2102, and have the title read.
Mr. Clerk, please read the title.
Senate Bill number 2102, ad valorem tax, exempt motor vehicles held by a record service for resale.
Make the usual motion.
Senator makes the usual motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move we adopt the committee substitute in lieu of the original bill.
Made a motion to adopt the committee substitute. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. Please proceed.
Recognize Senator Hill to explain the bill.
Senator Hill, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The pertinent language to this bill is 3 lines on 26, 27, and 28. And what this does, it gives a record service or automobile repair service business who is stuck with a vehicle and has gone through the notification process that's in statute to notify that owner to claim that vehicle, for them to be able to sell that vehicle without having to purchase a tag and title. That is basically the same thing that a finance company or bank is able to do once they repossess a vehicle. So that's basically all it does. It just, once that vehicle has gone through the notification process statutorily, they would not have to purchase a tag because they're not going to be driving that vehicle. They're only going to be selling that vehicle to try to recoup the money that they have been stuck with after they have repaired it or towed it. And this passed finance without any dissenting votes. There are no questions asked for passage on the morning roll call.
Are there any questions from the Senate? Any questions from the Senate? Seeing none, senators request use of the morning roll call for final passage. Anyone objects to the procedure? Anyone wish to be recorded as voting no or present? Seeing none, please record all those voting as voting on the morning roll call as voting aye, and the bill has passed. Senator Harkins, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to skip item 6, go to item 7, Senate Bill 2774, and have the title read.
Item 6 is skipped and retains its place on the calendar. Item 7, please, Mr. Clerk, please read the title.
Senate Bill number 2774, bonds, authorized issuance for various Mississippi Development Authority programs.
Make the usual motion.
Senator makes the usual motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Please proceed, Senator.
I move we adopt the committee substitute and be recognized and explained.
Senator moves to adopt the committee substitute. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. Please explain.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the omnibus bond bill that we're starting on. This is the first action on it. Let me emphasize at the beginning, it does have a reverse repealer in it, but I believe everyone was given a handout, a 2-page handout that goes through the list of the items in the bond bill, the meat of it, if you will. If you didn't get one, raise your hand and I'll make sure everyone has one. But you can go through here and follow along. I'll read out kind of the the high points. Section 1, this is the IHL Capital Improvement Fund. And the IHL, obviously, we've done a 4-year plan last couple of terms, and I think you also received a paper that looks similar to this. This is the actual 4-year request from IHL. So all of you should have a copy of that as well. So if you see a number that kind of strikes you as funny for the first year, there's also year 2, 3, and 4 that you either may get more or less. Some of these may be front-loaded for certain institutions, some may be back-loaded. But IHL has gone through with each university and has determined their projects and kind of set up a plan. So that's what we're going off of. Alcorn State, the campus and security projects, $3,650,000. Their ag division is $2,635,000. Delta State R&R of campus facilities is $3 million. Jackson State, Phase 3 of R&R and campus facilities is $5,260,000. Mississippi State, Phase 3 of the new facility for kinesiology department was $10 million. Their Ag Division, Forestry and Veterinary Medicine was $7,935,000. That consisted of Phase 2 for Ballou Hall and pre-planning for Dorman Hall R&R. Mississippi University for Women, Phase 2, new facilities for culinary arts program was $13 million. Mississippi Valley State, Phase 2 of the Student Union R&R was $13,435,000. University of Mississippi, the Phase 2 of the Data Center building R&R was $13,530,000. UMMC, replacement of a boiler was $5,680,000. USM, $6,500,000. That consisted of Phase 2 kinesiology building and pre-planning for Hickman Hall R&R. USM Gulf Coast campus at $700,000. That was for Executive Education and Conference Center on the Gulf Park campus and for the research laboratory. IHL, the Education Research Center, had $1,400,000. That was replacing mechanical air handlers at the University Center and Mississippi Public and Broadcasting Building. Section 2 was the state agencies capital improvement fund. This is the first round ask on their behalf, DFA. The Department of Corrections had $6 million for critical R&R. The Department of Finance and Administration had $17.5 million. Most of that is, as you see, there's $1.6 million for the Capitol grounds, the continuation of the project that's been ongoing around the Capitol. Phase 2 of the R&R for the new Capitol House Chamber. The dome in the House Chamber is basically starting to bow. The steel needs to be kind of replaced, and that is what that is covering. Eventually, we'll do this chamber as well and the center rotunda in the Capitol. But the $4.15 million is going to handle the House Chamber first because it's in the worst shape. War Memorial Building is $1.75 million. The Space Optimization Program is $3 million. Statewide critical R&R is $7 million. Department of Mental Health has $7 million in here. You see the projects under that one, R&R from the State Hospital building to Hudspeth to Ellisville State School, and so forth. Department of Public Safety, $20 million. This includes $10 million for the Phase 1 for the new DPS headquarters. We've already planned and spent a couple $1 million on planning for that building, and this is putting a first dent in the headquarters. There's also replacement of District 5 Patrol Starkville Substation. This is the last substation of the Highway Patrol that is the only substation that hadn't had upgrades, $7.5 million. Construction of the Mississippi Law Enforcement Training Academy's multipurpose training facility at Malota is $2.5 million. Wildlife and Fisheries and Parks has $3 million in there. And the Mississippi Military Department, their matching funds for R&R for readiness centers is $1 million. Section 3 is the community college. Same thing with IHL. They have a plan set up in place and a formula that they've gone by. You see the schools listed. Cahoma's $1.615 million. Copiah Lincoln's $1.915. East Central is $1,820,000. East Mississippi is $2,125,000. Hines is $3,925,000. Holmes Community College is $2,640,000. Itawamba is $2,445,000. Jones is $2,340,000. Meridian is $1,955,000. Mississippi Delta is $1,795,000. Mississippi Gulf Coast is $3,440,000. Northeast Mississippi is $2,040,000. Northwest Mississippi is $2,910,000. Pearl River is $2,365,000. And Southwest Mississippi is $1,670,000. Sections 4 and 5 deal with the Mississippi Site Development Grant Fund at MDA. This is a fund that goes to local economic development agencies that helps prepare local sites to get them ready for economic opportunities. That's $3 million. The ACE fund is in Section 6 is a $20 million ask. Section 7 and 8 is the Development and Infrastructure Program, the DIP fund. That's at $10 million. The base realignment and closure, BRAC, is $3 million for our military installations. Section 10 is the Economic Development Highway Act. That is a $9 million request. That is a fund that kicks in when a private placement is of a new or existing business. Over $70 million of capital is infused in that project. That's when those funds could become eligible to help with any roadway infrastructure going to the site. And Section 11 is the Chickasaw Heritage Center for $1 million. So the total is $222,225,000. That is the 30,000 foot view of the bond bill. So that's a description, and I'll take any questions. If not, I request use of the morning roll call.
Any questions? Senator
Since
Jordan,
things
for
are
what
moving so
purpose you seek
smoothly.
recognition?
I have a question, Mr.
For
President.
you for a question, Senator
I
Harkin.
certainly
Chairman.
do.
You're recognized. Senator Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chairman, on the disbursement, I'm specifically concerned about Mississippi Valley State University. The disbursement of these funds you have in the chart, this is just for renovation, R&R?
On Mississippi Valley State,
Yes. The 13 million you have,
this is the
13.5 million you
13
have there.
yes, sir. This is the balance of the project. It's the student union renovation and expansion on campus.
Okay. So for 2020, these are only the resources they will receive, or this just for R&R?
This is just for R&R. They're obviously going to get money through the appropriation process for IHL, but this is just for R&R on campus.
Okay, that's clarification. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Norwood, for what purpose you seek recognition?
Question, Mr. President.
Are you for a question, Senator?
I do.
Senator Norwood, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, looking at Section 3, Item 6, do we have any money left in that fund, and do we have any report showing how the money that was appropriated last year has been expended?
Section 3 of the bill?
Yes.
You're talking about under the junior
Section
colleges?
3. I'm sorry, Section 6. Section 6.
The ACE fund, let me see what I've got here. I can give you some examples of some jobs that were brought, I guess, to win the projects. Relativity Space Project got 190 jobs to Hancock County. Corel Brands brought 400 jobs to Marshall County. Kohler brought 250 jobs to Forest County. That was some examples of that fund, what that fund has gone to help incentivize or close these deals, these opportunities, these economic development opportunities that are out there.
Could I get that that list?
I'll request that, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Sojourner, for what purpose you seek recognition?
Question, Mr.
Are you
President.
for a question, Senator?
I do.
Senator Jones, you're recognized.
Thank you, Senator. Currently, the total on the bill, 222, is that correct?
That's correct.
And I know we talked about it yesterday in finance. This really would be considered a starting point, kind of, is that right? I mean,
Yes.
do you Based on other requests that have been put in specifically for local projects, do you know what the dollar amount on additional request is?
No, I do not. It's requests are continuing to come in, so.
To pile up, so to
Yes.
speak. How much of our debt are we going to pay off this year?
Well, I handed out a sheet to everyone, and it looks something like this that I've handed out. It kind of gives a snapshot of what our indebtedness is. This year, we're scheduled to pay off, I believe, well, what's due is about $412 million, but there's $150 million of bonds that are going to be refinanced that were interest only. So those will be refinanced to permanent financing. And I believe the number, and I may be wrong, but I think I've been told 253, somewhere in that area, $260 million.
Okay, so this year we anticipate paying off about 250 to 260 million.
In that area, yes.
And currently, our starting point on our added debt for this year is at 222. I know you and I share a common interest to be incredibly conservative with taxpayer dollars. And I've been reviewing these numbers. Currently, our total indebtedness is pushing $7 billion.
Yeah, and some of the, let me also say that some of the numbers in this total bond indebtedness are revenue bonds that have revenue that actually pay for it, so it's not coming out of, quote, debt service from the state. Some of the money, it is a smaller number, but there is part of it that is, that's serviced by revenue from sources.
Would you agree with me that if we're going to make, every dollar that we add in bond indebtedness is money that every year we have to take out of our appropriations budget because of the amount that we pay to service that debt? And if we're going to make progress in reducing that amount of money that comes out of our appropriations budget, would you agree with me then that we have to start bonding less than what we're paying off each year?
That would be, yes, that would be the mathematic formula to reduce total indebtedness.
But if we're admitting that we're not going to be doing that this year. If we're at 222 and a starting point and we're paying off 250.
Well, I would say that the starting point is the starting point, and these are obviously requests from the agencies, and there can be adjustments made. But I think also, we haven't even kind of finalized anything with the House yet, so a number has not been reached.
Sure. Real quick, do you know how much money is currently in the ACE fund?
Currently in the ACE fund, they've got about $27 million. They have approved projects, meaning that they have offered, so that I guess you could consider money obligated, around $27,623,000.
Okay. And then in the DIP fund?
The DIP fund is about $9 million.
And what is obligated?
Obligated right now is about, the bonding authority they have available is $20 million. They have about $11 million committed, and so that leaves about $9,200,000 uncommitted.
Okay. Last question. Yesterday in finance, we added, we took $1 million out of the Highway Act fund, MD, the Economic Development Fund, and we added the $1 million for the Chickasaw. Do you know exactly what that $1 million would be used for?
I believe there's some infrastructure and some construction. It's for a site development for an interpretive center in just outside of Tupelo.
So an interpretive center would be another name for a museum?
Yeah, it could be, yes.
I have no further questions.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Jackson, for what purpose you seek recognition?
Washington.
Were you here for a question, Senator?
Absolutely.
Senator,
Harden,
please
how you
proceed.
doing? Section 10 on the last page, Economic Development Highway. Do you know
Yes.
what particular project is including that $9 million?
I'm sorry?
Do you know what particular projects are included in that $9 million?
I don't think there are any particular projects that are included in there. What they do is they have a bonding authority for about, I guess they got about $8 million left, but whenever there is an infusion of private capital that goes into a project, that would kick in the opportunity for this fund to help kind of supplement and get the infrastructure to the site, or if there's a highway or road that needs to be improved in order for that project to go forward, the public infrastructure could be supplemented by that fund. But it takes a pretty significant investment by private capital in order for it to be triggered.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Bryan, for what purpose you seek recognition?
I'd like to speak
On the bill? Any other questions before that? Senator Bryan, you're recognized to speak on the bill.
I affirmatively do not wish to work on reducing the amount of debt service in our budget. This is a false measure that we look at from time to time, and looking at debt service in isolation means nothing. I'm going to abbreviate my remarks because of the difficulty that we're having, but first of all, look at this example. Generally speaking, it's more economically feasible. It's better money management to own a building than it is to rent. We could save lots of money if we moved entities that are now renting into buildings that we own and not pay rent, which in many cases strikes me as being well above the market rate. The way you do that is you issue a bond, and you pay for that building over the life of the building, just like when you buy your house. And when you get a mortgage for a house and you stop renting and you move into the house, you don't take the position that, oh my heavens, I've got all this debt, I'm being economically irresponsible. You've done a good thing, you've done a prudent thing. That's a prudent use of debt. When Nissan and Toyota, just to use a couple of examples, came to the state, we issued a fairly large amount of bonds, primarily for infrastructure associated with those facilities, improvements in road and rail and on and on. That adds to our bonded indebtedness. I suppose if the only measure we're looking at is our debt service, we'd be much better off if Nissan and Toyota had gone someplace else so we didn't have to issue all those bonds for the highway improvements. Right now, it is possible to borrow money at less than the rate of inflation. We have all over the state a crying need for infrastructure. Our water and sewer systems all over the state many of them are getting to be more than 100 years old. They need replacement. This is an excellent time to be replacing our water and sewer systems all over the state. I know we're in Jackson, and we tend to be familiar with some of the problems here because we see them. But the problem with water and sewer is it's not visible. You don't see it, generally speaking, until it's too late. And I'll guarantee you there are towns in everybody's district, in areas in everybody's district, that need long-term improvements to water and sewer. I don't think that coming generations will be mad at us for issuing bonds to improve water and sewer, but they might be upset if they realize we didn't provide them with clean drinking water and sanitary waste disposal. Many of the bonds that are in this debt service were issued specifically for industrial prospects. And we were told that this would generate economic activity and there'd be more money coming into the general fund than the amount of the debt service. I'm leery of those computations, but I think anyone must admit to some extent some of the bonds are offset by additional revenue coming into the general fund as a direct result of the bonds that were issued. So I could go on at length. Mercifully, I won't. But I just want to make the point that if all we're looking at is this one measure, the amount of debt service, we don't know what we're talking about until we look at what the debt service is for and whether the debt that we've incurred has been incurred for prudent purposes or accrued for imprudent things. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Harkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move passage on the morning roll call.
Senators requesting passage on the morning roll call for final passage. Does anyone object to the procedure? Anyone wish to be recorded as voting no or present? 2 noes. Senator Sojourner, Senator McDaniel are noes. Anyone else? Seeing none, please record all those present on the morning roll call as voting aye. With those 2 exceptions, the bill has passed. Move on the calendar. Senator Kirby, you're good on the rules. Pass. Senator Kirby passes. Senator McMahon, pass. Senator McMahon passes. Senator Bryan, pass. Senator Harkins. Item 38, please.
Mr. President, I move, make the motion, we call up Senate Bill 2771 and call it off the table.
Makes a motion to call up Senate Bill 2771 and bring it off the table. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Please proceed, Senator.
I fully have not recalibrated my brain, so I'm going to move we adopt the committee sub again in case we hadn't. I don't even really remember at the point we laid this on the table subject to call, so I just want to make sure we've adopted the committee sub.
Senator moves to adopt the committee substitute. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Please proceed, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the bill, the adoption Children's Promise Act that we have, and what this bill does, it's got a reverse repealer in it because we can keep working on it, but it takes out the reverter in, I guess, Section 1 that would revert the discount or the credit that someone can make from back to $2,500. It keeps it at $5,000. It also allows for you to make a donation to qualified QCOs and QFCOs, the foster care entities, and I think the aggregate is $3 million on that, and then, it's $3 million. It's in it's on line 256, but it also allows for the eligible charitable organizations to have a contribution and tax credit, and it was already at $5 million. We moved it up to $7,500,000. Obviously, that's given the state of things in our state and our budget. That's something we may want to reconsider. That's why the reverse repealer is already in the bill, but it also extends the repealer on the whole act out to 2025. So obviously, there's more work that needs to be done on this bill to really gauge the litmus of whether or not we need to increase the amount or what we need to do yet fiscally. So I would ask that you vote for the measure to keep it moving, just keep it alive. It keeps the vehicle out there, and we can decide later what we want to do with the final tally on the numbers of the credits. That's the explanation of the bill. If there are no questions, I move passage on the morning roll call.
Any questions from the Senate? Any questions? Seeing none, Senators move for morning roll call final passage. Anyone object to the procedure? Anyone wish to be recorded as voting no or present? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, please record all those present in the morning roll calls voting aye, and the bill has passed. Going to the general calendar. Senior Senator wish to call a matter up on the general calendar. Seeing none, we'll go to announcements. Senators for announcements. Yes, ma'am. Announcements. Senator Michelle.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a committee announcement and also an introduction of our doctor of the day. The Insurance Committee, which was scheduled to have met at 10:30 today, will meet 5 minutes after recess in room 216. And Senators, please join me in welcoming to our chamber Dr. Jeremy Irwin. He's an OBGYN, and he's Chief Medical Officer with Magnolia Health. And he lives in Madison, Mississippi. We thank you for being with us today, Dr. Irwin.
Senator Moran, recognized for an announcement.
Thank you. Tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock after recess, we'll have a Ports and Marines meeting in room 408 tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock in room 408. Thank you.
408, Mr. Clerk. Senator Carter, for what purpose? For announcement. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate Energy Committee will meet tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. in room 409.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Bryan.
Mr. President, the Public Health Committee will meet at 3 p.m. this afternoon. We will be having a presentation from Mr. Anderson, who is the new head of the Department of Human Services, and we'll have a report from the State Health Officer about the increase in utilization of intensive care units in this part of the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Tate.
Announcement.
You're recognized for announcement. Please proceed.
The Elections Committee will have a joint meeting with the House Elections Committee at 11 o'clock in room 216 today.
So it'll be after, immediately upon adjournment. Senator Seymour, you're recognized for announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. Military and Veterans Affairs will meet immediately after recess in room 408.
408. Military Affairs. Senator Whaley, you're recognized for announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tomorrow at 9:30 in room 408, the Senate Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks Committee will meet.
Tomorrow at 408. Senator Parker, you're recognized for announcement. Here, good. Senator Younger, you're recognized for announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. Agriculture will meet tomorrow after adjournment in room 210.
210 after adjournment. Mr. Clerk. Senator Doty, you're recognized for announcement.
Jud A will meet its standing meeting tomorrow at 3.
3 o'clock tomorrow, Mr. Clerk. Senator Jordan, you're recognized for announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. Drug Policy Committee will meet tomorrow at 11 o'clock in 210.
210, 11 o'clock. Mr. Clerk.
Time.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Blackman, you're recognized for an announcement.
An adjourn in memory.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. When the Senate adjourns today, I would like for us to adjourn in memory of George Floyd, the human being who died after an officer arresting him pressed his knee onto his neck for 8.5 minutes.
Thank you, Senator. Senator DeBar, you're recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. Education will meet for a standing meeting tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, rooms 216.
9 o'clock, 216, Education, Mr. Clerk. Senator Butler, you're recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. Adjourn in memory.
Please proceed.
When the Senate adjourned today, I would like to adjourn in memory of Mr. Roger Ramos, who was a World War II veteran, and also Ms. Jean Rankins.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Turner, you're recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Public Property Committee will meet tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock in 407.
4 o'clock, Mr. Clerk. Senator Hobson. Senator Hobson passes. Other announcements. The President does not anticipate, y'all are working really hard on your committee meetings. We so appreciate that. We do not anticipate being here Friday at this particular time. If that changes, we'll announce that. Second, we had, I was informed last evening that 400 volunteers from Mississippi National Guard were shipped last evening to Washington, D.C. This is the 155th that just came back from Kuwait and the Middle East. All of the 400 that went to Washington to protect the city are volunteers. So we ask you to remember them in your prayers and their families that are dispersed throughout the state. So, anything? Mr. Clerk, please read them. Then meetings.
Insurance will meet 5 minutes after recess in room 216. Veterans and Military Affairs will meet in room 408 immediately upon recess. Elections will have a joint meeting with House Election Committee at 11 a.m., room 216. Universities and colleges will meet in room 409 at 11 a.m. Highways and Transportation will meet in room 409, 2 p.m. Public Health and Welfare will meet in room 216 at 3 p.m. And on Thursday, Education will meet in room 216 at 9 a.m. Energy will meet on Thursday, room 409, 9 a.m. And Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks will meet on Thursday, room 408 at 9 a.m.
Thank you. Senator Polk, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in recess until 5 p.m. today or until the last committee report is filed, at which time the journal will reflect. We are adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow.
Senator Polk moves the Senate stand in recess till 5 p.m. today, at which time the journal will reflect. Senate stands in recess adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it.